In the spring of 2018, a team of microbiologists studying gut bacteria in rural Pennsylvania noticed something they could not explain. Children from a single Amish settlement in Lancaster County carried microbiome diversity scores 3 to 4 times higher than children of the same age, living 40 miles away in suburban Philadelphia. The Amish children were not taking probiotic supplements. Their parents had never heard the word, and yet inside their digestive systems lived a colony of beneficial bacteria so dense, varied, so resilient, that the laboratory equipment had to be recalibrated to count them. The researchers traced the difference to a single source: not the dairy, not the soil, not the air on the farm, a drink. A homemade drink that sat in a stoneware crock in nearly every Amish kitchen they entered. A drink that cost almost nothing to make. A drink that delivered, by conservative laboratory measurement, more than 100 times the live cultures of the most expensive probiotic capsule sold in American pharmacies. That capsule is probably in your medicine cabinet right now. $40 a bottle, 30 billion cultures, the label promises. Refrigerate after opening. The Amish drink in question contains, in a single 8-ounce glass, somewhere between 3 and 5 trillion live organisms across more than 40 distinct strains. And the recipe has not changed since the 1820s. This is the case of the buttermilk that should not exist. The drink the plain communities call Dick Milk, or simply the morning glass. And by the end of this investigation, you will know exactly how to make it in your own kitchen, using ingredients available at any grocery store for less than $2 a quart. To understand why this matters, you have to understand what researchers call the Amish Farm Effect. Decades of work by Johns Hopkins, investigators on plain communities in Lancaster County and Holmes County, Ohio, has documented something that should not be possible under modern medical assumptions. Amish children develop asthma at roughly 1/4 the rate of the general American pediatric population. Their seasonal allergy rates are lower by a similar margin. Autoimmune conditions, inflammatory bowel disorders, and certain food sensitivities appear at fractions of the national average. These are not folk claims. These are peer-reviewed findings, replicated across multiple settlements, across multiple decades, across multiple research teams. For years, the leading explanation focused on barn exposure. The theory was simple. Amish children play in barns full of cattle, hay dust, and microbial diversity. Their immune systems learn early, case closed. But the theory had a hole in it. Hutterite children in the Dakotas grow up on industrial-scale farms with even more cattle exposure, and they show asthma rates closer to the American average. Something else was happening in Lancaster and Holmes that was not happening on the northern plains. Something the barn theory could not account for. The microbiome researchers think they found it. The Hutterites pasteurize their dairy. The Amish do not. The Hutterites buy commercial yogurt from supermarkets. The Amish ferment their own milk in stoneware crocks on the kitchen counter, exactly as their great-great-grandmothers did when they first arrived from the Palatinate in 1737. The drink is not yogurt, it is not kefir, though it shares ancestry with the cultures of Eastern Europe. It is a specific Pennsylvania Dutch fermented buttermilk, descended from techniques recorded in handwritten community cookbooks across Lancaster, Berks, and Lebanon counties throughout the 19th century. The Hans Herr House Archive in Willow Street holds at least 3 such manuscripts, written in the Old German script, with recipes for cultured milk preparations that the women of the household renewed every 3 days, year after year, decade after decade, generation after generation. What did these women know that the rest of America forgot? The first piece of evidence comes from the dairy itself. Traditional Amish dairy is raw, unpasteurized, drawn from cows that have grazed on mixed pasture, not on industrial corn silage. That milk arrives in the kitchen carrying a native microbial community already in place, dominated by lactic acid bacteria, including strains of lactobacillus, lactococcus, and leuconostoc that have lived on these particular farms for over a century. When commercial milk is pasteurized at 161 degrees, those bacteria die. When raw Amish milk sits at room temperature in a clean crock for 24 to 48 hours, those bacteria multiply into the trillions. The second piece of evidence comes from the crock. Pennsylvania Dutch families have used the same stoneware vessels for generations. The interior glaze of an old crock is never fully sterile. Microscopic colonies of beneficial cultures embed in tiny imperfections of the surface, and each new batch of milk poured in inherits the lineage of every previous batch. A working crock in a Lancaster County kitchen may carry direct microbial descent from a starter brought across the Atlantic in a wooden barrel on a sailing ship in 1737. This is not poetry. This is what genetic sequencing of Amish dairy cultures actually shows. Strains so old, so specific, so geographically isolated, that mainstream dairy science has no commercial equivalent. The third piece of evidence comes from the timing. Penn State Extension has published guidance on traditional dairy fermentation that confirms what the Amish grandmothers have always known. The first 8 hours produce mild souring. The second 8 hours produce thickening as proteins coagulate. The final 8 hours produce the deep population explosion of beneficial bacteria, when colony counts climb into the trillions per quart. Industrial yogurt, fermented under controlled heat for 4 to 6 hours with 2 or 3 commercial strains, never reaches this density or diversity. It cannot. The economics of mass production do not allow it. The fourth piece of evidence is the one that closes the loop. When researchers compare the gut microbiomes of Amish adults who drink traditional fermented buttermilk daily against Amish adults from the same community who, for whatever reason, have stopped the practice, the difference is measurable within months. The drinkers maintain the elevated diversity. The non-drinkers drift toward the standard American profile within a single year. The drink is not a cultural curiosity. It is the active ingredient, which raises the obvious question. If this practice is so effective, so cheap, so simple, why did the rest of America abandon it? The answer is documented in the agricultural and regulatory history of the 20th century. Between 1924 and 1949, state after state passed mandatory pasteurization laws for commercially sold milk. The intent was public health, and in cities with poor sanitation, those laws saved lives. But the side effect was the erasure of an entire culinary tradition. Home fermentation of raw milk, which had been standard practice in American farmhouses from Maine to Missouri, became first inconvenient, then suspect, then forgotten. The rise of refrigerated shipping in the 1950s meant that grocery store milk replaced the kitchen crock. By the time the supermarket yogurt aisle appeared in the 1970s, the original drink was gone from mainstream memory. The Amish, who never connected to the industrial dairy supply, simply kept doing what they had always done. Now you can do it too. The version that works in a modern American kitchen requires 3 ingredients and 1 piece of equipment. The equipment is a half-gallon glass jar with a loose-fitting lid. The ingredients are 1 quart of the highest quality whole milk you can find, ideally from a local dairy that does low-temperature pasteurization, half a cup of cultured buttermilk from the refrigerated section of any grocery store, and a clean kitchen at room temperature. Pour the milk into the jar. Add the cultured buttermilk. Stir gently with a wooden spoon. Place the loose lid on top, do not seal it tight, and set the jar on the counter away from direct sunlight. Wait. After 12 hours, you will see the milk begin to thicken at the edges. After 24 hours, the entire jar will have set into a soft, tangy, custard-like consistency with a thin layer of clear whey on top. Stir that whey back in. Refrigerate. Drink 1 glass each morning, on an empty stomach if possible, for 30 days, and observe what happens to your digestion, your skin, your sleep, and your sense of steadiness through the afternoon. When the jar is down to its last half cup, do not finish it. Pour fresh milk in on top of the remaining culture. Stir. Let it sit again for 24 hours. You have now started a perpetual crock, exactly as the Lancaster County grandmothers have maintained for nearly 300 years. Each batch carries forward the lineage of the last. The cultures grow stronger over weeks and months. The flavor deepens. The cost approaches zero. For those who want to push closer to the original, there is one further step. This is the piece of evidence the investigation has been holding back from the beginning. The Lancaster County practice, recorded in a handwritten cookbook held in a private Mennonite collection, dated to the 1890s, describes adding 1 ingredient to the second batch and every batch thereafter. A single tablespoon of fresh, cold whey skimmed from the previous jar, stirred into the new milk along with the buttermilk starter. That tablespoon of whey carries the wild lactobacillus strains that have multiplied during the full 48-hour ferment, the deep population strains that the commercial buttermilk starter lacks. The grandmothers called it the seed. They never threw it away. They never let it die. They taught their daughters that the seed was older than the farm, older than the county, older than the country itself. That tablespoon is the difference between a pleasant fermented drink and the trillion-count probiotic the Johns Hopkins microbiologists found in the bellies of Lancaster County children. That tablespoon is what $100 of pharmacy capsules cannot buy. That tablespoon is what was lost in 1924, when the first pasteurization law erased the perpetual crock from the American kitchen. And what is being recovered, jar by jar in your kitchen this week if you choose. The pharmaceutical industry cannot patent a tablespoon of whey from your own counter. The yogurt corporations cannot bottle a culture lineage that is 300 years old. The Amish never needed them to, neither do you. Somewhere in Lancaster County tonight, a woman named Miller or Stoltzfus or Yoder is pouring the last of today's buttermilk into tomorrow's jar, exactly as her great-great-great-grandmother did under candlelight in 1820. She does not know about the studies. She does not need to. The knowledge has been kept alive by hands, not by journals, and now it has been placed in yours. Tell me in the comments below whether your own grandmother kept a crock on her counter, what she called it, and what state she lived in. The map of what America forgot is being redrawn one comment at a time, and your memory is part of the record. Subscribe and stay with the investigation. The next case examines a Holmes County bread practice that may explain why Ohio Amish gluten sensitivity rates are nearly non-existent. And the recipe has been hiding in a single Pennsylvania Dutch cookbook since 1887.